We got Julie Kelly with us now to talk about the J6 releases, commutations, pardons, all of it. She is the author of Declassified on Substack. Go subscribe. Julie, I hear you're a little under the weather. Thanks for powering through for us here. We just felt like, given what's gone on with these pardons and commutations, the releases, you're the person we wanted to talk to. Just first off, what have you been hearing from the families, and bring us into what it's like as they're finding out in real time that Trump has given them their lives back?
Well, Buck, and I, regardless of how I feel, I'm never sick. So, of course, today would be the first day in 30 years. But anyway, I want to thank you, and I want to thank Clay, because you guys were instrumental in getting this message out. The travesty of the J6ers, their plight, the abusive prosecution of them, incarceration. So this has been really a team effort, and I want to thank both of you. Also, how did you guys get such hot wives? I saw photos from the ball.
We do what we can. I'll tell Clay. I'll appreciate that.
So anyway, I wanted to thank both of you, and it was just a historic day. I mean, this full pardon that the president issued last night, getting my phone blowing up with texts that people were already being released, mothers who were crying that their sons are coming home. So I just really have to commend and thank President Trump, because, Buck, this was not an easy decision to make at all. This got a lot of pushback from Republicans in Congress. You had U.S. senators during Pam Bondi's confirmation hearing, Lindsey Graham and Tom Tillis coming flat out saying they opposed pardons for those who allegedly beat up cops. And Tom Tillis even today saying, denouncing these pardons and saying he wants new federal laws for killing police officers. No police officer was killed on January 6th. So this is the sort of political opposition that the president had to deal with. But nonetheless, I know he was personally committed to this, and he took a very bold, courageous move yesterday. I think that there will be more to come on this, because he really wants all of these people and their families made whole after the Biden, Merrick Garland DOJ did everything they could to try to destroy them.
And last night, were there people? I mean, I was seeing some video on social media at the ball, so there's a lot of things going on, and people were being released as of midnight. Is that how did it actually go down?
Correct. So some of them started getting released last night. And, keep in mind, as you probably know, Buck, but your listeners, these people are in the hardest federal prisons across the country: Texas, Philadelphia, in New York City. This is where we put really dangerous repeat criminals, not someone who got in a scuffle with a police officer during a political protest. So, yes, some of them were being released, in the wee hours of the morning, and their families were kind of scrambling to figure out how to go get them because, of course, they're hundreds, maybe thousands of miles away. We do see today, and I'm sure you've seen this too, Buck, the D.C. Gulag, of course, waiting till the very last minute, delaying as long as they possibly can. Defendants, including women, who are in that hellhole waiting to get released. And I think some members of Congress have already gone there to try to figure out what's going on. But that is really the gulag, the center of the torment of these J6ers. But nonetheless, they will be freed. They will be home. And I think more to come to make them whole. And hopefully also, Buck, hold accountable the monsters in the DOJ and FBI and federal courthouse who did this to these people.
Is there anyone who is supposed to be out among J6 prisoners who is not out? That was another thing that I was seeing, but I wasn't sure, and I know that you're following all this very closely. It would seem to me the president says, you're out, right? I mean, there shouldn't be there should be no question. There's no this is straight chain of command presidential pardon issue or commutation issue. So is anyone still waiting to be released, or is everybody out who's supposed to be out?
My understanding is there are still some who are being released, or who are waiting to be released, especially at the D.C. Gulag. Now, the D.C. Gulag is sort of the holding pen for defendants who are going on trial. So they are transferred there from other federal prisons they've been detained under pretrial detention, or they're in prison, they've been convicted and taken into custody. That's kind of the holding pen where they all stay before they have to go to the courthouse a few blocks away for whatever proceeding. So there's a mix of defendants in there that could be the holdup, because some are there who are convicted, some are there who are on trial and have not been convicted, some are there waiting to be sentenced. So if they're blaming it on paperwork, doesn't matter. These people should immediately have been released last night, deal with the paperwork later. So if this continues throughout the day, and I know there are actually people, J6ers, who were released from prison last night, say in Philadelphia, who went right to the D.C. gulag, and they're there already helping in any way that they can to get these J6ers out of the gulag. So there might be some more drama there this afternoon. We'll keep an eye on it.
And I also just think, Julie, because it's easy for people to, there's so much going on, to forget about some of what went on here. And yes, this is a happy moment, and it's an incredible move by President Trump. And I first and foremost, this is just such a relief and such an incredible decision by the new president to do this. But I think it's important to also have that perspective of, people were held in, what was the longest that you remember for somebody being held in solitary confinement as a J6 prisoner before trial? What was it? Was it over a year? Was it 14 months? I mean, and what was some of the treatment that some of the nonviolent J6ers were receiving in that D.C. gulag?
So the members of the Proud Boys who went to trial in December of 2022, many of them had been in custody since January or February of 2021, so almost 2 years before they went to trial. And these are nonviolent charges: obstruction of an official proceeding, the ridiculous seditious conspiracy statute, which is reserved for real terrorists, not people organizing to go to a political protest. So those were the most abused, I believe, but there were others who were imprisoned for a year, 15, 18 months before going to trial. And the real outrage there, Buck, too, yes, and held in solitary confinement because of alleged COVID rules, especially at the gulag, where people were transferred from all over the country to go to the D.C. gulag just to torment them. There weren't court proceedings, in-person court proceedings going on in Washington in 2021. They transferred them there, sometimes 4 or 5 different stops along the way at other federal prisons, finally making it to the D.C. gulag, where they had a special section of the D.C. prison system set aside for Trump supporters. I mean, this is the sort of thing you read about in banana republics, not in the United States. And yes, held in solitary confinement, denied access to their family, denied access to their attorneys. So we are going to start hearing the horror stories now that these people have been released about what has happened to them during the proceedings, and of course, while they were in custody in these violent, dangerous federal prisons.
Were you hearing directly, Julie, from some of the families as they were finding out that this was real?
Yes. And that's the first time I started hearing were from defendants and from family members. Oh my God, so-and-so is coming home. I can't believe this is and I kind of didn't believe it either. I thought, okay, the pardons, then there will be a process for getting people out of jail, and it was happening instantaneously. I believe that the president and I think his acting DOJ officials, as soon as they took office, started notifying the Bureau of Prisons and U.S. Marshals that this was going to happen and to prepare to release these defendants. So it was already sort of in motion before the president signed that pardon order last night at, I think it was 7 o'clock Eastern time.
Speaking of Julie Kelly, Declassified is her Substack, which you can all subscribe to. She did so much great work by looking into publicizing, advocating for J6 prisoners with her Substack and by coming on shows like this one. And now, Julie, what I want to know from you is, what do you want to, on this issue, and we can expand this a bit more broadly into just also cleaning up the DOJ and making sure that we don't see more of what we saw here with J6 prisoners and a whole bunch of other things as well, with the weaponization of the Justice Department. What do you want to see going forward? What does justice look like to you, and what does cleaning up DOJ look like to you?
Well, I will tell you, Buck, I did talk to the president last week for a lengthy amount of time about this issue. So obviously he was very adamant about pardons, and also, as we saw with the other executive order yesterday, cleaning up the Department of Justice. Not just, of course, what they did to him, but what they did to Peter Navarro and to Steve Bannon, and trying to destroy Jeff Clark and John Eastman, his attorneys, and then, of course, the J6ers. So I think he's also very committed to exposing everything that went down in his prosecution, the other prosecutions, the J6 one as well, how the FBI was involved, what they did, these armed, pre-dawn armed raids for nonviolent offenders, terrorizing families and their entire communities. So this is just the start. Let's put it that way. This is just the start of accountability and transparency and all of the things that I think resulted in President Trump's win. This repelling the lawfare, dangerous lawfare, and a DOJ that has that the American people have no trust in.
Julie, one more for you before we let you get back to, relaxing and resting and getting ready for the fights ahead. The last minute, given how you've had to fight through all of this insanity from the Democrat DOJ under Biden, pushing for the most extreme prosecutions possible of J6 defendants and all the rest. What was it like to see, just as he's scurrying away from the spotlight, Biden pardon his immediate family members, along with Fauci and J6 committee people, et cetera, but particularly the Biden crime family? What was that like for you?
I mean, we were all waiting for that to happen, right? We knew it was coming, but here it was, 11:45 or so Eastern time. He was going to wait till the very last minute, which he did, to pardon all of his family members, giving credence to what we all know is that is the Biden family crime racket. And I think we will learn more about that, all of the business deals that the Biden family initiated and were engaged in with some of our foreign adversaries, and then funneling that to Joe Biden, despite all of his protestations to the contrary. But I will say, too, Buck, back to J6, that also justifies, I think, really adds fuel to the fire that the J6 committee was also a criminal operation. And we know that they were engaged in criminal conduct, destroying evidence, suborning perjury, obstructing investigations. So we know that that's the case. And then pardoning before I call J6 celebrity cops, Aquilina Ganell, Mike Fanone, Daniel Hodges, and Harry Dunn, who committed perjury not just during that July 21 televised performance where they were all crying and lying about their injuries, but also lying under oath as witnesses and victims in J6 court proceedings, begging judges to throw the book at J6ers based on injuries and trauma that they never sustained. So that, I think, is a real travesty, too.
Julie Kelly, everybody. Julie, I know the families and the J6 defendants themselves appreciate your work, as does this audience, and it must feel good to see how it all came together finally in the end. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Buck. Thanks for all your help and covering my work.
Of course. This country was founded on freedom, personal freedom, your ability for you to decide what's best for you and your family. And those freedoms should apply to pretty much every aspect of your life, including your choice of cell phone service provider. Because here's the thing, you don't need to pay $100 a month just to get a free phone. But that's what the big cell phone service carriers would have you do. But Pure Talk, my cell phone company, says no to inflated prices. With a qualifying plan of just $45 a month, you can get a free Samsung Galaxy. And yes, this is for premium service. I'm talking about unlimited talk, text, 25 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot at a fraction of the price of the big guys. And it's all on America's most dependable 5G network. Get your free Samsung Galaxy by dialing pound 250 and say the keywords Clay and Buck. Pure Talk's U.S. customer service team will help you make the switch. Dial pound 250, say the keywords Clay and Buck to claim your free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying purchase from Pure Talk, America's wireless company.